DAPTIME Sports. Game Time. Full episodes can be found at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website. Also, you can find episodes on YouTube at DAPTIME TV. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, follow us on Instagram at DAPTIME21, Twitter at DAP_time, and Facebook at DAPTIME. Thank you for your continued support. We're proud to partner with Harrell Eyewear to bring you this episode. Makers of stylish and innovative luxury prescription and non-prescription glasses for all occasions. For more information, visit the partner link on our website or go directly to www.harrelleyewear.com. Harrell Eyewear. Never lose your identity. It's time.
What up? What up? What's happening? Welcome back to another episode of Game Time. I am AJ, also known as B-Dub, Bobby Westbrook. And as always, I'm here alongside my partner in crime, the one and only world-renowned Big Dame. And always dropping the needle on the one. Our incomparable maestro, Pete Nice, is providing the soundtrack. Grooves that make your body move. Yo, we are thrilled to welcome you back to another episode of Game Time. Today, we're going to dig into the NBA in many forms. Lots to talk about, so we won't waste any of it. Lace them up. Let's get on the court and get it done. What up, Big Dang?
What's happening, bro?
Man, happy to be back on the wax with you, bro.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing.
It is. It is.
What's the good word?
You know, man, it's I said it before, I'll say it again. This is one of my favorite times of year. Got the NBA playoffs in full swing, background noise of moves being made in the NFL. Of course, the confetti and fodder of baseball, since I'm not a huge baseball fan, but So much is going on in the world of sports. So, you know, I'm thrilled, man. Weather's good. Spring's in the air. I cannot complain. What's up with you? How are you doing?
Man, I think you just checked all the boxes. I'm good. Life is lovely.
Check. That's it. Wanted to jump in, man. I know since the last time that we got together, the NBA's 2020 class finally had their induction ceremony for the Hall of Fame, which you raised a number of things to talk about. But I think first and foremost, what did you think of the class that went in this year?
For the most part, I thought it was a fair class. Initially, I had some question marks. I can't lie.
Really?
Initially, but when I started digging into the stats, it's a fair class, I think.
It's funny when you make a great point. I think when you dig into the stats, it's a very fair class. I think, it begs the question, the difference between the Naismith Hall of Fame, which really seems to recognize everything basketball related once you get to certain stages, right? Like any of your contributions that are significant, versus football and baseball, where it really seems you're being recognized for what you did as a professional exclusively, which I know we're going to talk a little bit more about later. I thought there were a few interesting highlights that just kind of caught my attention, right? Like, so Kevin Garnett was presented by Isaiah Thomas. And I was trying to figure out, like, wow, not a relationship you would have seen anywhere. But it typically when you hear the greats talk about the NBA, they talk about it as a fraternity. I mean, almost more than any other sport, professional sport, they talk about the fraternity of NBA basketball. Right. And it makes you realize, like, these guys, they look out for one another when they pull younger guys in the league. What do you think about that? Like, Isaiah introducing Kevin Garnett, is that something you would have foreseen?
Not initially, but I wonder if the Chicago ties have anything to do with that, because, Garnett, he's from South Carolina, but he moved to Chicago and did his high school ball there. And then, of course, Isaiah's from Chicago. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it. I don't know. But I do know Garnett, he's one of those guys that really embraces the brotherhood of the game. I think Isaiah does too now. I think he always did. But Isaiah he found himself in some precarious situations, right?
Precarious. I like that.
over the years. So it's some situations that might lead you to say he doesn't appreciate the brotherhood, but I think he does. I think he does. And so I think, I think that, maybe the Chicago ties or maybe just KG's passion. He's one of those guys, I would imagine if you're a veteran, you would love to put him under your wing because he's just as passionate as KG, was when he played the game. I'm sure he would soak up anything that those guys told him.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, it was. It's funny. I mean, kind of was a foregone conclusion in my mind that he was going to go in the Hall of Fame, as was the case with Tim Duncan. I think one of the things that also caught my attention, and made me appreciate the way Naismith is set up because it's everything basketball. It's unique in that you have, as players, men and women who get inducted. Tamika Catchings went in, and of course, when she goes in, it resurrected thoughts of people that really got me into women's basketball. I remember when Shamika Holdsclaw was balling out at Tennessee, and really getting into Dawn Staley and Rebecca Lobos and all these other players who have played. And you just kind of think about, wow, the NBA is unique in that when they have their ceremony, they're mixing in all these dynamics around the sport that in some ways, if you pay attention to it, can extend the love and appreciation for the sport. I mean, you can play as a kid and you can play as an old person. You know what I mean? You can play with people and you can play by yourself. I mean, it's a unique sport. And so the love of the game is what seems to be on display as much as your accomplishments and what you give to the game as well. But it seemed that the takeaway for most people was Kobe's induction and Vanessa's speech. Did you catch that by any chance?
I didn't. I caught bits and pieces, but I didn't catch the whole thing. How about you?
So here's where we get into the deeper conversation about the Hall of Fame. I didn't. I caught bits and pieces, obviously the highlights, which was kind of trippy because Jordan was standing next to her. And so it made me wonder, like, well, did Jordan say something as well? Do you know if he did or didn't?
I don't know. I know he recently, started to be vocal about their relationship.
Right.
The relationship that he and Kobe had. So, and I don't think either one of them ever divulged that information prior to that. So
not the depth of it. No.
Yeah, I thought that was.
I think you could always assume the closeness, but I think the depth of it is what we got more of,
right?
Particularly around the memorial ceremony and Mike's statements there. But what was fascinating to me is, like you said, I wasn't even tripping on tuning in to the induction, right? It wasn't like, oh my God, I got to catch that. And I love KG as a player, loved him. But the NFL is different. When the NFL Hall of Fame comes, you want to tune in, even though you are guaranteed some of these speeches are going to be ridiculous, but you are going to tune in. I don't care about baseball as much, so I don't really tune into that Hall of Fame. But both of those ceremonies, Major League Baseball and the NFL, like their Hall of Fame inductions are a major production, right? Yeah. Like you've seen fans talk about. I don't feel the same thing about the NBA, even though I think the NBA has a call. Do you?
I don't feel the same thing. It's weird too. So it's like with baseball, it's almost like that's America's favorite pastime, right?
Right.
Whether it's your favorite pastime or not, that's what they're calling it. That's what it's been done. That's what it's been marketed as. And there is a mystique to baseball. You know what I mean? Cooperstown. There's a mystique to that whole thing. Football, same thing. Canton. It's like Monsters of the Midway. There's all these great, marketing schemes that drive you to. By the way, if you ever have been past the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, doesn't look like much at all. But it's like it's the hall though, right?
Right.
And with basketball, I've been by the Naismith in Springfield, And it doesn't look like much either, but I don't know what it is. I don't know why they don't get the same look, or they don't garner the same attention for their Hall of Fame. I'm not sure what that's all about.
Do you think it's because they cast a broader net, or, I mean, like if you balled and it was your first love, I mean, maybe it would, but I don't know. I mean, football is my first love. If I caught the Hall of Fame, it'd be cool, but am I going to go out of my way to go to Canton? I don't think so. You know what I'm saying?
So football, the way they do, I think maybe the timing of it. So the way they do it with, there's usually going to be at least 80% of the names are going to be very well known,
right,
in your present time. In your time frame. Also, they couple it around a great weekend. They have the Hall of Fame game, which is a preseason game. So you've been fiending for football for months. Now all of a sudden you got a game. So it's like you know what it is. When it's Hall of Fame weekend, you know what it is. So you're clearing your schedule. You got some football finally again. So you're getting ready for that. So I think that plays some into the role. Whereas with basketball, man, it's playoff time. That's my focus is NBA playoffs. What is Braun going to do? Is the next big three going to take, that's what I'm thinking about. So then they kind of slide in the Hall of Fame, and that's a story, but I think the timing of it may be off a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe they were bit by the COVID bug because maybe they normally do it in fall. I think, but because of 2020, maybe that was part of the reason for the delay. Either way, I mean, they also, what was interesting is they also announced next year's Hall. The class, and that's where it got interesting to me because I'm looking at some of these players and I'm like, Hall of Fame, really? But until you look at the stats, you don't really consider it, right? Chris Bosh, Chris Webber, Paul Pierce. I mean, they seem like good players in their time. But Hall of Fame worthy? I had to go look at the stats to be sure. But then when you look at the stats, it's like, man, at their position, they did their thing compared to other guys who are already in. So I guess, but it didn't feel Hall of Fame-ish to me. Does that make sense?
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. It is almost like, what if I told you Arian Foster is getting inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame? How would you feel about that name?
I would first say you're lying. Then I would be like you are lying. And then I would ask you why.
But then you would have to break down his career, right? And then
yeah, okay.
And then once you do that,
I'm waiting for the curveball.
I'm just saying, to me, he's one of those. Some of these players is kind of like a him. It's like, okay, y'all were good players. He was a good running back. You know what I mean? He had a good career with the Texans.
He was,
but it's like, if you tell me Hall of Fame, I don't know. But then when I break down his career, and I look at the fact that he had, for career stats, he averaged, let's say, 1,400 rushing yards per game per year.
Really?
Not bad. From scrimmage. It's not hateful.
1,400 yards from scrimmage is actually good. He had didn't he have a 10-year career?
2009 to 2016, so 7.
Oh, okay, there you go.
7 years, yeah, But I mean, I'm just saying, you would have to go back and look and then say, okay. Because initially the name wouldn't jump out to you. The name wouldn't say, oh, yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame. So that's how I think it is with some of these guys.
So that's the thing, right? Like initially, I think that's what it feels like. It feels like famous people, famous players in the NBA make the Hall of Fame, right? To me, but I've always kind of felt like the Hall of Fame is hallowed. It is where, you're putting players whose imprint on the game is timeless. And so if you tell me there's never going to be another player like Chris Bosh, or Chris Bosh is a kind of player that man, he changed the game somehow.
I feel you.
I don't know if I could call it that, but
I feel you.
I look at what he did in Toronto, good career. Look at what he did when he got with the Heat, good career cut short. Chris Bosh had a nice inside and outside game. He has good stats, and I liked him as a player. But again, I'm saying Hall of Fame caliber. It's like I look at the NFL and players who don't make first ballot, because that was the other thing. Like, this is like first ballot you going in. I don't think T.O. was first ballot.
T.O. waited, I think, a couple goals. He waited a little while.
His stats alone make him a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Chris Carter waited, I think, 5 or 6 years.
Stats alone, first ballot. Like, I mean, if you want to make Chris Carter second ballot because I don't think he got a chip, fine. But his stats certainly warranted him being. Art Monk waited, I think, to next to the last. So that's what I'm saying. You look at players. To me, a Chris Bosh is like an Art Monk.
Okay, so here's my thing, though. Here's the thing, because it seems like every year, just about every year with the NFL, there's some guys it's so packed. It's almost like it's backed up. It's like, man, you got to get some of these guys. When Randy Moss came up, it was like, okay, he's definitely a first ballot guy, but you still got T.O. waiting. You still had Chris Carter waiting at the time. You're waiting on guys, not to mention the throwback guys that you got to pull up and bring in, for legacy purposes and things like that. So I think with basketball, bro, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I mean, if you had to put together a list, who's changing the game like that? That's not playing right now, like that you feel like is not in and deserves to be in. So, I mean,
well, so there was scuttlebutt around in this year's Hall of Fame with Tim Hardaway, right?
I think he should be in.
And so, when you look at his stats, good stats, certainly comparable to other guards that are in, but that begs the question, right? So if you want to go Chris Bosh and Tim Hardaway, you could say they're the same kind of contribution to the game. Bosh helped make a championship team for sure. But if you take him away, could you have found another player that D Wade and Brown would have won with? I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
You see what I'm saying? Like, so, when you look at Run TMC, there's no Run TMC without the T.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, and Tim Hardaway's game, if you want, you could say a lot of things. Now, some people would argue World Be Free was probably one of the original gunners like that, but Tim Hardaway made it popular to pull up from 30. And if he was cooking, he was cooking. You know what I mean? Sure. He had a killer crossover that could break people off. He did his thing and left his mark on the game. That's an imprint, right? So if Mitch Richmond's in, if Mullins is in, why isn't Timmy in?
Right. Well, and yeah. I mean, you have to ask yourself that question. And then you have to ask yourself, why are certain people getting in that didn't make the same type of impact? Forget stats at this point, but didn't make the same kind of impact that he did.
So here's where I think the whole Naismith conversation comes into play. Is Chris Webber going in the Hall of Fame because he also is part of that Michigan team in addition to his NBA contributions?
I hope not. I hope that doesn't have any bearing because, I mean, for one, those records were pulled, and he didn't win a chip in college anyway. And it's the NBA Hall of Fame. So that shouldn't have any bearing.
It's supposed to be, but now you got Jay Wright from Villanova going in next year as a coach. That's what I'm saying. If you think about it, the Naismith actually is a beautiful thing, right? If you were the best high school coach in the nation. You put more kids in college out of your program who then go on to be outstanding citizens. You teach the game well for 50 years. You might end up in the Naismith Hall of Fame. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that translates for fans in the same way that the NFL Football Hall of Fame does or Major League Baseball. It's just it seems like the politics around football and baseball are really clear.
Right.
And it makes it seem like it's hallowed ground. And then you look at the NBA and it's like, is it hallowed? It doesn't seem quite as hallowed as the others.
Because I know Bill Russell's going in again this time as a coach.
First black coach ever.
And that should definitely be celebrated. But that's weird to me. Like why was that not all put the first time? Let's celebrate it all. And here he is. Here's his section, and this is everything he did in the game. So I agree with you. It's almost like filler material. Some of this stuff for me. I'm just gonna say it. It's almost like filler material because, again, I'll go back to the NFL. You look at a Hall of Fame class, aside from a couple of guys from the 50s that I may not even really know. Everybody else I know, and everybody else deserve to be there, hands down. You know what I mean? I look at the class when T.O. went in, and I mean it was just chock full of guys that deserved.
Didn't Ed Reed go in that year? Wasn't Ed Reed
in that year?
That was a stacked class.
It was a big time class, but I mean there was no question. There was no question to anybody that was in there. So, and that's almost every year with the NFL. Just pretty much every year, it's like I can't find no fault in who they're putting in. They all deserve it. So I don't get that with the NBA much.
Yeah, the only thing that I find interesting about this year that was unique, it would have been intriguing if you would have had Weber, Garnett, and Duncan all going and Bosch all going in the same year. Because there are four guys who played the same position. And this is, to me, the funny part, because when you line them up, Timmy is the one that stands out tallest. Right. That's your Hall of Famer, to me, if you line them up. Now, KG then would be number 2. So if you take those four, give me your 1 through 4 ranking.
Tim Duncan, Garnett, Bosch, and Weber.
Yep.
I'm probably going Timmy, Garnett, Bosch, and then Weber.
C. Webb number 4.
I probably I mean, they're him and Bosch are vying for 3 and 4. I'll put it like that. Bosch and Weber.
I'm going to challenge you because I think a young C. Webb probably is number 2.
Really? You put him over Garnett?
I think C. Webb, we forget about what he was. He was a beast.
He was
a beast. He could dime. He could handle. When he wanted to go to the rack, he was unstoppable.
That he was.
But
I just remember Garnett, when Garnett a young Garnett in Minnesota.
Yeah.
He changed the whole culture of that team. And that's what I'm looking at. When you talk about impact, we were just talking about Hall of Fame. You talk about impact on the game. He impacted the game. I mean, he was a throwback. He was a throwback player, man. He had the passion. He had the intensity. And he went to a team that was winning nothing and made them, at least people had to look at him and pay attention to him on the schedule when he got there.
You put him, a young Garnett with a young C. Webb on the block. Young C. Webb is owning all that.
You think so?
Oh, my God. He was too light in the pants.
I don't know, man.
Now, he jumped out the gym and he was long. So, I mean, he going to hold his own. But, he did have, I think he had a jumper when he was early on. It got better as he got further in his career. But, young C. Webb was a problem. Young C. Webb was a problem.
It's no doubt. So, So when you talk about being deserving of Hall of Fame, when his name comes across for you, what's your thoughts? I mean, are there any? So obviously, you feel like he's right there, he's deserving, or is it a situation where I don't know if he did enough?
You know, by the by the NBA standards, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
But you know, by what I thought the standard was, no.
Okay.
That's just me, right? But by the NBA standards, hands down. But you know, I thought it was more than that. So that's what we know. Real
Fair
quick,
enough.
Big Game. Let's take a minute to recognize our partners. How we feel it. DAPTIME, if you've been rolling with us for a while now, you're rolling over with us on Game Time. You know we believe in how we feel, and they are doing amazing things. Rolling out a platform that helps you have more authentic conversations online about whatever journey you're taking in life. So maybe you're learning how to dribble for the first time. Maybe you're trying to learn how to cook, or you're trying to navigate your career. Whatever it is, you can now have authentic engagement with people in the same space, learning and growing from one another. So take a minute out of your life, visit their website, www.howwefeeling.com, and start your journey today. Big Dame.
Yes, sir.
It's playoff time. You mentioned that earlier. And, you know, we haven't made our picks as of yet. So I thought we could take a minute, give a little bit of time to the NBA playoffs. I want to ask you a couple questions first. What are your thoughts about the playoffs thus far?
I think it's interesting. I think this is probably one of the most even playoffs we've seen in a while.
Really?
On both sides, on the West and the East. I think it's pretty wide open. I think there's a lot of parity. I ain't gonna say wide open, but there's a lot of parity, more so in the West than the East.
Okay.
So
I
yeah,
would have thought that. I would have
exciting.
thought that, but Washington gave Philly a run.
Yeah.
I don't think that they'll beat Philly. I really don't think that can happen, but they gave them a run.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Milwaukee seemed to make a statement against Miami. I think if there's a surprise thus far, I'm not sure Miami's going to make it out of the first round.
I don't think they will. I think what's Milwaukee up 2-0?
I think so.
So, but who knows? I mean, I think last year we was a similar situation, and Miami came back and fought. So, who knows? Jimmy Buckets,
Jimmy,
he gets turned up, man. Ain't no telling.
Uncle Jimmy put that brown paper bag in his back pocket.
You know it. It's under the seat. It's under the seat. So, yeah, man.
Did you by any chance catch the Knicks Hawks game in Madison Square Garden and see Trae Young's antics?
I did not, but I from what I understand, I missed a treat.
So it was really interesting to me, and it makes me really want to tune into this series. Now, listen, I get it. You've been walking around the city of New York for a couple of days. Everywhere you go, you're hearing expletives and your name follow. So you go in, you want to do your thing. I respect that. And you do your thing. And when you pull it off, you turn around center court and basically give it back to the fans. I get it. I get it. But it's New York.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm itching to see if this young team with a tough, gritty, defensive-minded coach like Thibodeau can resurrect some of that New York bully ball, and what Trae Young looks like if that shows up.
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see. I think Trae, I hope he understands the check that he just wrote by doing that. You understand what I'm saying? Because now you better show back up every game from here on out. You can't take no days off at this point.
No days off.
No days off. Not that he ever could really, but you definitely can take no days off. So I mean, as hey, I'm all for it, man. To me, that's what it's all about. It's a fight. So you should go in there guns blazing. So we'll see if he can be consistent.
With what you're seeing, are you favoring? First, let me see. So in the East, who do you see playing in the conference finals?
In the East?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Nets. And I think it's going to be the Nets and the Sixers.
You think Milwaukee's going to come up short?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Milwaukee's going to have to play the winner. If Milwaukee wins, they'll have to play the Nets because the Nets are going to beat Boston.
Okay.
That Milwaukee could beat the Nets. Chris Middleton, I think he's tired of people not putting respect on his name. And he's showing up. I mean, he's not. Everybody's saying it's just Giannis. And people are like, well, he got Chris Middleton. They're like, yeah, it's just Giannis. And he's out here like he had a backyard meeting with Kwame Brown and then got turned up and he's out here balling. So, I'm anxious. To be honest with you, I'm really anxious to see that matchup if it turns out to that. But yeah, I'll go. I'm gonna go Sixers and Nets. That's gonna be my official pick for now.
Okay. So you got Sixers and you've got Nets, and the Sixers beat. They beat the Wizards, and then who do they have after that?
The winner of Atlanta, New York. So who knows who they'll get?
So they got a cakewalk, really. I mean,
well, I wouldn't call it a cakewalk, but they should win it. They should win it. They'll be favored, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're right. Yeah, well, it depends because New York. If New York gets past Atlanta, I won't count out a Thibodeau team that's playing inspired basketball. Can't do it. And
Julius Randle's having like the best year he's ever had.
He is, man, but he looked like a deer in the headlights the other night. Well, he and you could call it the first game. Like it's, Shaq said something really powerful. He said someone, called him out and said, "Hey, you had a bad game, big fella." But he said, you're good. You'll be great one day. And great players never have back-to-back bad games.
Yeah.
I think the question begged, is Julius Randle going to be a great player? And I think that we'll find out through this series. If he turns the corner, then yes, I could see the Sixers having their hands full with Julius Randle. I just think Embiid is just so big. We talked about this when we talked about big men a while back. He's big and plays big. He doesn't pussyfoot around in the lane if he comes in there and can step out and hit that three. And, his supporting cast, Tobias is playing unconscious.
Doc Rivers has that whole team clicking right now.
He really does.
The whole team is really clicking. So,
and it's weird because even though they've been favored, they kind of feel like they've been flying under the radar.
That's probably good for them, though.
Absolutely.
I think it keeps the chip on their shoulder because they're playing inspired. It looks to me like they're playing inspired. So yeah, I love it.
So then the real drama seems to be out west.
Yes.
I mean, it's Portland goes in, steals one in Denver. Then they lay a goose egg in the second game. I think that series is definitely going at least. I mean, it could go 7, and
it's going 6 at least.
At least,
because Portland's at home, and they're going to win at least one at home, if not both at home. I mean, they had 42 in the game they lost,
and he had 32 of them in the first half.
Right. It's crazy.
So that's going to be problematic. I don't think the Lakers are out of the woods by any stretch in their matchup. Chris Paul although Paul's injury could play a factor. I mean, that was the heartbreak of, because as much as I hate to say it, my Dubs did not make it. I wanted them to make it, but they didn't make it. So, to me, I had to say, well, where am I going to put my hopes? And my greatest hope, of course, is going to be that Dame goes and gets a chip. If he doesn't make it, then I actually might have to find myself rooting for Chris Paul to get a chip, which I don't know that I can do that, but I'll try. but I think when you look at what his contributions are, I respect what he's done as a point guard. He's a really great player. Yeah. And I just hate that, he has that bug, man. Like, it gets late in the year and it's something, right? It's a hamstring, it's a thumb, and this year that shoulder might be a problem because he couldn't shoot. He's so tough though, man. He came back and he just, he toughed it out, but that right arm was useless.
Yeah, it was definitely affecting him.
So you got to wonder if that lingers, will that somehow impact this young Suns team? Your boy did not show up.
Hold on. Don't put him on me. He is not my people's. I put him out the car. My guy.
Your partner was not there.
Here's the thing. And not only did he not show up, he was thoroughly outgunned by DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton is a good young player. I like him.
Yes.
Liked him came out of Arizona, I believe.
He did.
But come on, this is AD, baby. You the game. You supposed to show up. This is your. I'm saying that. Let everybody tell it. He's the guy, right? So now's the time. If you're really who they say you are, now is the time when you're supposed to show up and just dominate this kid. You're supposed to put him in his place. That's how it works.
It didn't work that way.
He was playing AAU ball or something. I don't know what was going on with this dude, man. I don't know. I don't know. It shocked me, but it didn't shock me. You know what I'm saying? It didn't shock me.
So I'm guessing. Do you think that Phoenix gets past the Lakers?
I think the Lakers will get past Phoenix. It may go 7. It may go 7 games. I think. Well, I mean, he's that puncher's chance, man. He's that fighter's chance. I mean, if you got him, you got a puncher's chance, right?
Right.
So I think they'll get past them. It may go 7 games because initially I'm thinking they could get by him in maybe 6. You know what I mean? But maybe even 5. But after what I saw the first game, it might go 7 if they get past them.
Hey man, Phoenix is good. Phoenix is good. Monty's coaching them really well. And it's no cakewalk if you do, because Dallas is a problem. Utah is a problem. Memphis is a problem.
Memphis stole one from Utah in game 1. So yeah.
And now they're putting Spider in apparently for game 2. So, that's a lot of pressure on Spider coming back. If he's 100%, that gives him a better chance, I think, because I believe they're thinking the matchup will be better in the backcourt between he and the cat for Memphis. What's the young dude's name in Memphis?
Ja Morant.
Ja.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, Ja is definitely a problem. Having seen that up close and personal, to be honest, I loved his answer to the Warriors in the second matchup. They a week apart when they had to come in, and now this is the one for all the chips. Steph went for 40 and change. He went for 30 and change, and the game sealing shot. So I definitely see, but Dillon Brooks is really the X factor on that team. I think he's their defensive motor. Valanciunas is playing out of his mind in the paint. Like, he's just going down under the rim, getting boards and putting stuff up. And defensively, he's got a good presence, and their bench is playing well. So, they're making teams play their style of basketball, and it's gritty. And, I don't know if Utah doesn't get past Memphis. I mean, unless Memphis just fatigues because of inexperience, they could mess around, and they're young enough that their legs may be fresher, and it could be problematic. So The West is ugly, man. There's drama there.
It's anybody's game.
It is. It is.
It really is. Now,
go ahead.
Here's a bigger question for you. Who's coming out of the East? We talked about the East a little bit. Do you have a favorite to come out of the East?
There's
who
absolutely.
Who do you see in the Eastern Finals? Put it like that.
In the Eastern Conference Finals, I think your call is the right call. It should be Philly and the Nets. And the Nets should come out of the East. They should come out of the East.
Mm-hmm.
There's a slim chance that the Sixers just might, because of durability and continuity, the Sixers might get past the Nets this year. Because I think the Sixers are balanced across the board. The Nets are balanced, but I think they're really hanging their hat on the big three. I don't know how. I mean, Harden set out a long time, so you got to believe that hamstring's 100%. But if anybody's ever had a hamstring, even a good pull, not necessarily as severe as he had, because I think he was out for like a month and a half or something like that, maybe 2 months.
He was out for a while.
But a good pull will put you down for like 3 months. So if he really is 100%, which I doubt he is, then yeah, they probably can manage it. They have a good supporting cast of players who do well. But the Sixers match up across the floor extremely well. Mm-hmm. And I think Embiid is an X factor. I really do. Ben Simmons is a problem. Ben Simmons he's an excellent two-way player. He doesn't need a jumper because he facilitates better than most. Mm-hmm. And the rest of their team, Tobias Harris, is a problem. So I think I think the Sixers and Nets would be a great Eastern Conference Finals. And I think that'll be a 7-game series. And it's possible the Nets don't come out, but they should come out of the East.
Okay. So do you think this is the year that the East stakes dominance overall?
Ooh.
Because the East looks stronger than they've looked in a while.
I would say this would be the year that they would want to. If they're going to do it, this is the year to do it. Because I think I see holes. If you got the matchup right, everywhere that you could put, the only team that I think matches up with enough talent and a style that could compete with them, that is remaining in it, would probably be Utah. Because Utah with Gobert at the rim could be a serious factor. You got favorites coming in off the bench. Spider Mitchell's going to be problematic on the perimeter, but they've got Ingles, Bogdanovich, they've got shooters. They've got enough playmakers, and they play really good defense. So, I could see Utah giving them some fits. Everywhere else, I see too many holes to really make a series out of, whether it's the Sixers or the Nets. So this would be the year, but I don't see that next year. I really don't. And even I don't have a crystal ball, but just seeing the Warriors back in it, the Warriors would be a problem for anybody if they come back with their full complement of their core. You've got a better Wiseman, not to mention whatever moves you make. The West is going to be problematic. The Clippers could possibly do it if they get their act together, but I don't know that the Clippers are going to get through and win the series they're in now.
Right. It's going to be interesting to see, man. It's like a soap opera.
It's exciting. You said it.
Yeah.
Real quick, Big Dame, we're going to take a moment and recognize our other big partner, DAPTIME. We, with all this sports, all this sweating, got to make sure you keep the funk away. Fortunately for you, Game Timers, DAPTIME has been a long-time partner. If you haven't visited their website, Samira Jacobs is doing awesome stuff. We tell you all the time, this 13-year-old entrepreneur has a fabulous, all-natural, organic bath product that anyone could appreciate. You don't want to take a bath, you don't like sitting in the water, go ahead, get her body scrubs. They're amazing. So visit their website, www.theotm.com. 2R1. Big Dame, the main event today. We cannot talk basketball and not talk one Kwame Brown.
Kwame, Mama's cooking.
Mama's cooking, seasoned well. I want to set this up right. You know, a lot of times you see people with their podcasts, it's all about clickbait, right? And so people are, jumping on because it's a lot of sensational talk between Kwame and Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes and some of the things Kwame's saying about people like Stephen A. Smith. But I think what I really enjoyed in our pre-production talking about some of the content and some of the implications from what he's sharing. So for those who don't know, who are listening, Kwame Brown, former NBA player, 12-year career, average stats for, a big man with that kind of career. Drafted number 1 overall by the Washington Wizards. They were still the Wizards when he got him, right? When Mike drafted him over.
They were the Wizards.
As a 18-year-old young man
17.
Out of high school, and heaped upon him were the expectations, being drafted that young with no college experience, that he would be a star. Go ahead.
Being drafted by the great Michael Air Jordan. So
exactly. So I think obviously most fans were thinking, wow, Michael Jordan sees something in this kid. He's 7 feet. He will be great. And instead, his career ended up being good. Just a 12-year career of making $65 million over the life of his career, winning a ring with the Lakers, I believe it was, late in his career. Yep. But many of the pundits have, over the years, referred to him as a bust. They have negatively commented on his career, and he's been fairly silent about that. People have made a joke out of him. TMZ has done things on him on other outlets. So this all came to a head because a couple of NBA players who have a very popular podcast, Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson on All the Smoke, those guys, and I don't even remember what was originally said, but they made some comments and references to him, and Kwame had enough. Had more than enough. And so Kwame's been going out and vocalizing this in some very raw and unedited terms. Mama's cooking is what he calls it. Well seasoned, and going back and forth with these guys, airing it out a bit. But he's made some very, very powerful comments about the impact of all of that. Big Dame, that's what I want to throw at you now. When you hear what's going on with Kwame, when you hear what some of the stuff he's saying, where do you go? Where do you go with that?
Well, I think when you listen to some of the stuff he's talking about, a lot of it's grown man stuff. It's just regular old grown man stuff, in my opinion. I'm not privy to the relationship between any of the parties involved, but I do know one of the comments apparently something was said about, that was someone else, that was Charlemagne, mentioned something about his father being incarcerated or his brother being incarcerated in some crime that he may have done.
So I think a few of his brothers have been incarcerated.
Yeah, I don't know the number, but I know somebody. It was a brother.
I think it's 5 of them. 5 of his brothers have been in jail.
Well, one of the things he keeps bringing up is my 16-year-old son didn't even know some of the information that he's getting from these people that are just talking. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I think that's fueling some of it.
Yeah.
But from that standpoint, I can understand being mad. And some of the stuff he's bringing up is stuff that, as a society, we really need to stop and take a look at. Now, grown men can say whatever they want to say.
Right.
I've always been told, this is a free mama said for you right here. You're free to say whatever you want to say, but you are not free from the repercussions and consequences of it. So you can open your mouth and say whatever you want to say to somebody, but you don't have control over how they respond to that. So be careful how you choose your words. And so I think in today's society, and I'm not pointing fingers at any one person in particular, but I think in general, as a society, with social media, with just the way things are now, we've gotten away from accountability. We've gotten away from thinking about what we're saying before we say it. We just having fun. Everybody's just, and that's cool. But now when you're just having fun talking on some of these platforms, you're reaching out a whole lot of people. You know what I mean? You're touching a whole lot of people now. It's not just, we're not just sitting in the room having a conversation and, well, if you weren't there, you missed it. Oh, now everybody saw it. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that it's entertaining. Some of his rants are entertaining, I will say, but all in all, I haven't heard the first lie. You know what I mean? I really haven't heard him tell a lie. I've heard he's been brutally honest, and he's addressed issues, just issues, social issues that need to be addressed. Quite honestly,
he has. My concern has only been, sometimes when people react, the reaction is so raw and so unfiltered that the jewels in your message get lost, in the mud. But I understand to some degree, one of the things he talked about was Stephen A. Smith, whose popularity has skyrocketed in the last decade, was one of those folks that when Kwame was young in his career, Stephen A. Smith, referenced him as a bum, a bust and a bum on, national television. Now, I don't know the exact numbers, but you got to figure you've got millions tuning in to First Take. You've got millions tuning in to that outlet that are being reached with that message. And you're talking about a 17, 18-year-old young man.
Right.
It's like there's something to be said for qualifying what we say, and recognizing. And now I don't think I should be calling a 30-year-old man a bum. You know what I mean? Like you are in the NBA. You did make it to the show. You are in the NFL. You are in Major League Baseball.
Right.
If your career doesn't live up to what I hoped it would be, okay, but does that make you a bum? I don't. I just think that we've lost respect, and so that's one part of it. The second part of it is then you're looking at the fact that it's a young black man. So as someone who's acquainted with the fight and struggle to get on, to be successful, to be around the game and know some of what these young folks come out of that are fighting for a chance that, hey, if I don't do well at this, I'm not sure if I can change the course my family's on. But if I do well at this, I can not only secure myself a good retirement, but I can dramatically change the future of my children. I mean, it's a generational blessing. And, his pointing out that there's an irresponsibility there. Kwame's not necessarily saying it that way. And so I think that's the other part of the question. Is there something wrong with the way that Kwame's delivering his message?
I don't think so. I think my only concern, I don't have a problem with it because, so when you listen, I've listened to some of the videos of Stephen A. Smith, some of his critique. Even saw one where Jalen Rose was attempting to defend, and he said the same thing. He said, critiquing him and calling him a bum are two different things.
Right.
Man's been in the NBA for 12 years, getting paid millions of dollars throughout. You can't call him a bum at that point. You just can't. Especially when
you didn't make
it. Sniffed it. You never sniffed, you didn't go to NBA.
You didn't sniff training camp.
Right. I don't even know if he made it all the way through college on the team. I don't know what happened, but in fairness, come on now. He's a bum. Right. You know what I mean? So, but it goes back to what we were talking about with respect and accountability and things that we've lost. And sometimes in our zeal to achieve, we forget that there's a responsibility, right? So
yeah,
we have a responsibility that comes with that. So yeah, I want to get to the money, but I have a responsibility to be around. I have a responsibility to spend it wisely. I have a responsibility to invest it wisely. So I can't just do anything for the money because, I can't do that. So same thing here. I think Stephen A has done has had a great broadcast career from what I can tell. And he seems very self-motivated and ambitious in his efforts. But anybody, not just him, you have to remember in your zeal to achieve, to get to whatever spots in life you're trying to get to, you got to remember that you have a responsibility to the people that you're speaking on as well. You know what I mean? You're speaking about him. Yeah, it's a career, but he's not just a product. He is a person. And you just have to keep that in mind. And I think it's easy to forget that. And then you get caught up in the ether.
Well, I guess part of where I struggle, and this is not, struggle is the wrong word. Part of where I come back to my question is that goes both ways. Now, you're right. Go back to your free mama says. Everybody's free to say what they want to say, but you're not free from the repercussions. Right. And so I think when I look at some of the videos and some of the disrespect being fired back as return fire, I hear in it lines being crossed, going back over, right? So you want to throw a jab at a Michael Wilbon, but right. I mean, Michael Wilbon is extraordinarily accomplished and is a landmark following in the footsteps of great columnists, journalists, Black sports writers, and stands as an example of what you should be doing to do justice. I mean, Michael Wilbon is not just PTI. A lot of people just get on because of PTI. They don't go back and know. Same with Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith was a really good beat writer that worked his way from just turning in stories by a deadline about the game to being able to talk more broadly to a broader audience about sports in general. And I think there's something that has to be, we've got to respect elements, right? That what these guys go through on every level is more than what we see in the 30 minutes or the full hour that we catch them daily or periodically or whatever. If they turn into characters, they choose to turn themselves into characters, we have to treat them appropriately. And I think it's not Kwame's responsibility to now be ultra respectful of the people who have fired disrespect at him. But if your message is that we've lost respect, you don't necessarily reinforce that by being disrespectful. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, I agree. But I understand. That's all I'm saying. I understand. I agree with you. I agree with you. And I feel like once you get your first couple licks out, he's been going at it for,
I got a week now, right? Yeah.
So you didn't fire them up pretty good. You know what I mean? You didn't even hit some collateral damage and hit people that probably bystanders. But I understand. But I think at some point, and I hope he does this, he could reel this into a place where he really addresses some of the issues that he's throwing out, because he's throwing out some great points and some great issues to speak on. I think at some point you need to reel it in and not go overboard. It's almost, you remember the movie Law Abiding Citizen?
I do.
So, the guy, his family's murdered. It's just terrible situation. The guy that they catch ends up getting off through a technicality. One of the guys got off, one of the guys went in and ended up. So this guy took it upon himself to plot this whole revenge plan, right? He ends up killing the guys that did that, whatever, to his family, but that wasn't enough. Now I'm gonna thwart the whole system because the whole system let me down, right? Because of the system, you let this guy off and you gave this guy this much time, so I'm gonna take over the whole system. And he had this whole elaborate plan. He was gonna take out the judge, the jury, the lawyer, everybody. And eventually, you know, he got stopped, but he went from being this guy that you felt sorry for, that you understood, and you were like, well, I get it, man. Look at what they did to his family. To a guy who you were like, man, now you wrong.
Right.
You wrong, bro. You just wrong. So I don't want him to get to that place. You know what I'm saying? Because right now I understand. But I think if you just keep firing at people, nobody's saying nothing else. You've made your point. You've garnered a following. Plenty of people plenty of people understand where you're coming from, but you know, change levels at some point.
I'm gonna throw it at you, and it's really interesting. You make a great point. I think I look at our partner, How We Feeling, as an example, right? There is the assumption is everybody is on TikTok, everybody's on Facebook, everybody wants social media the way that it is being popularly supported. Mm-hmm. But if you dig a little deeper, you find out that people are aborting their Facebook accounts. They're deleting them. They're jumping off Instagram. They're jumping off TikTok. People are finding other ways to engage because they want something more in droves. And so I think in the same way, Kwame is seeing, and so How We Feeling presents an alternative that speaks to that need. In the same way, Kwame is highlighting, like, there are people who are tuning out of First Take, the same way that people are tuning out of Sports Center,
right? Because
I caught the highlights. I'm not gonna watch again. Like, there was a point where people watching 2-3 episodes of the same stories. Now people are like, man, I'm tuning into some of these blogs. I'm following some of these people on YouTube. I'm following people here who are talking about stories or giving them news in ways they hadn't gotten. And I think Kwame is speaking to a value set that says, hey, you get on, talk about stats, talk about metrics, give us a story beyond he's a bum, he's a disappointment, he's a sensational star, and because he's a player, he gives you that behind the scene peek that the truth is you're pumping this guy up because he's friends with this guy and you want to get cozy up to that person. So that's why you want to make that story great. Right. And so he's giving you that peek behind the curtains that you hadn't gotten and saying, but look at the character. Look at the character. Is that somebody you really want to be behind? Is that somebody whose character you really want to point your child at and say, hey, be like that guy? Maybe not. And so I think, to your point, there's an opportunity for Kwame to set himself up in a way, because in truth, he's a great story, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You got multiple siblings who take a different route with negative outcomes. But you're an honor roll student who at 15 got a full ride to University of Florida. It's already clear by the time you're 15, because of the work that you're putting in and the talent that you have, that your mom is not going to have to pay for your college education. So at a minimum, you've already added value.
Right.
And in the next 2 years, you play yourself beyond that to an earner who financially can buy your mom a house. And security is there, who within 4 years of being in the league, nobody's got to work anymore.
Right. Right.
And, say what you want to say, but the people talking about him played longer, made less money. So, I mean, here's a kid who took everything he had, and by the time he was 30, was a multimillionaire, able to retire. And people talking about him still have to work. You know what I'm saying? There's a great story in Kwame Brown about what people should be looking to the professional sports to give them. Right. It's, if you're going to do it, leverage it the right way. Maybe you don't make the Hall of Fame, even the Naismith Hall of Fame. Maybe you don't make it even the Naismith, but you can be in the Hall of Fame of life. Right. There's that story. But, people want to take the sound bites of disrespect and fuel something that really is nothing more than black men tearing down black men. And that's what I hope he doesn't get lost in that fight.
Yeah. And I think, I think that's one of the things he's fighting against. But like you said, you don't want to fight against it with the same venom. You know what I mean? Because it seemed as long as Stephen A was talking, he didn't say anything.
Right.
It wasn't until he felt disrespected by Steven Jackson and
Matt Barnes.
And I feel like it was because, but hold up. They part of the same brotherhood. They know the game. They know how things can happen. They know the grind. They know I was in the league for 12 years. So they know there's no way I could have been a bum. How dare you talk bad on me when I don't know how long Matt Barnes was in the league, but 14. I don't know if it was 12 years. 14. Okay. So around the same. But I think that's what set him off. I think that it seems like at that moment, that's when he was like, wait a minute. Really? That's what we're going to do? Okay. Right. I got something for you. So I think that it was more of a betrayal feeling. It seems it almost seems like he feels like they tried to betray him. So maybe that's why he's unleashing. But to your point, you make a great point. It's an awesome story. And I just don't want to see him go too far to the other side. You know what I mean?
I also don't think we need to be making these softies, though. I think that there needs to be, listen, if you go and you're going to play on the stage, there's going to be commentary about your play. And Absolutely. So if you're not evolving your game, well, there's going to be commentary about that. We can't have respectful commentary doesn't turn into, I know he's trying. I know he's giving it his best. And it just doesn't seem to be quite working out for him. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get that.
If I asked you who the biggest NFL bust was, there's probably a few of them. Who would you say?
It's close to home. I mean, Jamarcus Russell is going to be the one because it's my Raiders. I mean,
I didn't even think about him, but he's at least still getting paid by the Raiders. So,
well, he won.
Well,
he won. He won in life.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point.
And I'm going. If bust means disappointment right. on the field, right? Jamarcus Russell is going to come top of mind for me. Vince Young is a close second.
So when I think of a bust, I think of Ryan Leaf, right?
Sure.
Now I think of Ryan Leaf, but then I think about his story. He had a substance abuse issue. He went down that road. He has since cleaned himself up. He's got some stuff, great stuff going on. Now, what's funny about that is he was called a bust for a while. I mean, and I don't like the word bust, but he didn't live up to expectations at all.
At all.
Number one pick, and he did nothing. But there's been a couple of stories on him on ESPN. Great stories, telling his story, outlining his recovery, showing how great the work he's doing now is and how successful he is now and how he's come out on the other side of it, right? Mm-hmm. Great. The narrative was changed, right? They're not still talking about 10 years after he's done playing football. Man, Ryan Leaf, what a bust. Ryan Leaf, what a bust. They're not still doing that. So why are we Kwame, his last game was in 2013. It's been 8 years ago. Why are we still? Why is he still the go-to token joke? You know what I mean? When I need some material, I'll just throw Kwame's name out there. You know what I mean? It almost feels like
right.
So instead of highlighting the great story, like you just did, he's a young boy, 17 years old. He said, the first thing I'm gonna do is buy my mama a house. He bought her a house on a golf course. Like you said, made $65 million over the course of his career. He looks as though he has done well with his money. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's an awesome story. That's life-changing. That's wealth building at its finest. Why are we not highlighting that? You know what I mean? If you look at the scales, brother, it's something else at play. You know what I mean? In my opinion.
I think that's what he's alluded to. And I think that's what he highlights. And I think that's why it's important. You know, when you talked about bringing this up at first, I remember we went back and forth. I was like, what are we going to talk about that for? But I think looking closer, there is a reason to have this conversation because somebody's got to be willing to say what he's saying. Don't fall for the simulation. Don't fall for what you see on the surface. I mean, there's so many people now who are clipping excerpts of what he's posted and clicking excerpts of what somebody else has posted, put a caption, and hey, click on this, because all they want are the likes and the follows and the shares to build up their platform, make some money off trash. I mean, think about it this way. You hungry, you out, you got to get something quick. I'm going to fly by the fast food spot. So that's already not your best choice, but we all have had to make that choice. Mm-hmm. But you don't pull up to the fast food joint and then go to the dumpster and look and see what other people have half eaten and thrown away. Right? You want to go in and at least get your own stuff. Right. That's, to me, clickbait on the sound bites between them that focus on the name calling and, oh man, Kwame roast Stephen A. Smith. Well, Kwame's saying so much more. Right. And that's what I think somebody's got to be willing to highlight that in order to really advance the conversation beyond just the visceral disrespect that is in that argument that has real people feelings underneath it. I mean, I don't know if Matt really cares. I don't know if Stephen really cares. Kwame really cares. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, we said earlier, the NBA fraternity has been spoken of by its legends as a fraternity more than any other league that I know of. And I think that the greats probably sit back and look and say, man, it's a shame. So, yeah, man. Anyway, Big Dame, I know it's time for us to get into the championship rounds where you drop some Big Dame DNA, Dame's nuggets of affirmation. So with that, I know we've had a good conversation. What do you have for us in the championship rounds today?
Man, as you said, it's time for the championship rounds. This is where we take a quote from someone great. We throw it out there and we apply it to our lives. Today's quote comes from Nelson Mandela, who was a boxer at one time.
Whoa, did not know that.
A lot of people forget that. He did a little boxing in his day. His quote, he says, is, "It always seems impossible until it's done." I thought it was a very simple quote, yet inspiring. It always seems impossible till it's done. Kind of goes with what we're talking about today. Society today, we're all very driven by what everyone's doing, right? There's so many different avenues to follow. You got TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all these different places where you can find a mass of people and follow what they're doing. But something has been put in your heart individually. All of us have been given something individually to do. And until we focus on our inner self and focus on our own path, we won't be able to see it or manifest it. So, and it's going to seem impossible. But if you keep working and you keep staying focused and you keep believing in yourself and in what God put into you, then that thing will start to manifest. And when it's done, you'll see it. And it'll feel impossible. I can't do that. I can't own a business. I can't make that kind of money. I can't. You'll say that, but if you keep putting one foot in front of the other and you keep focused on yourself and not what everyone else is doing and focus on the inspiration, not the dumpster, promise you'll get there and it'll happen. And it'll be the impossible. You will have done the impossible. So keep putting one foot in front of the other and it'll be done.
Big Dame, mic drop moment, no doubt. Ding, ding. As always, man, thank you for the dope conversation and definitely putting a pin on this conversation with that championship round quote. As always, Pete Nice, thanks for scratching on the cut and break and dropping the needle on the one. But the three of us wouldn't even deem this time as valuable as we do if it weren't for you, the listeners. So I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of Game Time. Definitely, as Big Dame said at the outset, if you're checking us out on YouTube, before you go, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can catch everything when we drop it. Visit us on our website to subscribe to anything and everything we're doing from a content standpoint. Maybe catch us out on DAPTIME Lifestyle, where we're talking about other lifestyle related issues. And visit the DAP shop as well, www.itsdaptime.com. You can catch us on social media platforms. Instagram, we are at DAPTIME21. On Facebook at DAPTIME, and on Twitter at DAP_time. Whichever way you do it, however you do it, share it with 5 to 10 of your friends. Get them along, build a movement, and maybe replicate these conversations where you live. Change your world around you. We'll leave you now, as we always do. When you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror. There is your competition. We out.
Peace.